Alrighty, and welcome everyone to episode 10
Oh,
of.
wait, we have another guest again.
Okay. We're gonna have our intros be done by everyone other than us.
Literally everyone other than us. Take it away, Alpha. Hot. So, I did some reading today, Myth,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and dude, if
This,
if
this.
if you don't cry during Ada's story, you're not a real person. There's something wrong with you. It's to me, it's like listening to Swan Lake done by the agonist and just not feeling anything. Like if you don't cry during that, you just there's something wrong with you.
Which I
This
didn't.
is a
So,
there Myth. You are not human. Did you not cry during either of those?
I definitely got some feels during the Black Armory papers, but I did not cry during Swan Lake. So,
Oh, you're so close to being human, so close.
so close. Uh,
Um, so she's got man. I don't even know what's a good spot to start with her. I
so
genuinely don't have a good
what
spot to start with her.
what I was intending to do is essentially start with the inception of the Black Armory and just go through the Black Armory papers
Yeah, I think
uh,
that's a good spot.
chronologically by entry because that
Yeah.
leads into Ada, and I'm assuming based on the sheer amount of stuff to cover that this will be a two-parter. We'll see, but I'm I'm guessing that's where we're gonna end up, uh, because a lot of we can
What is it not?
paraphrase, and we can cut the trim the fat on some of this, but a lot of the entries are gonna be stuff that I feel like we should read
Oh
uh,
yeah, absolutely.
verbatim or close to verbatim. Um, so yeah.
So
Uh,
so so the so we'll start with kind of the start of it, which is um in my so it, there's a lot to this story.
mhm.
I there's part of it is a person looking for a purpose. There's part of it that is and I didn't really feel this until I started reading the story. This is very much like there's a women empowerment thing in this.
Oh,
Not to make it all
absolutely.
like political or anything like that, but it's a very powerful statement to the women of Destiny, and especially the women of Destiny universe. Like it's there there are a lot of very strong-willed women in this universe, and gone. That's fucking awesome. Um, and it's like and then there's like the I guess third and fourth perspective. There's this perspective of survival, and then there's the perspective of just a mother trying to motherhood her child.
There's a lot of family aspects to it, in a number of different ways. Um, mother and
But not
child,
like
sister and
but
sister.
not like Fast and Furious style. Like we're not like
No, no,
there's no the power of family wins all battles.
we're not propelling cars into space or anything.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
sorry, that complete. I off the tracks already. We ain't even gotten started yet.
yeah. But yeah, so this all starts though. It hits all these facets, but it all starts with a singular idea from a single woman. And that idea being I don't know if mistrust is the right word, but a want to not be reliant on the traveler. Um, and so we enter at the Black Armory Papers entry 10. I'm gonna go over a lot of the entries. There are a few that I've cut because they're just kind of superfluous world building, and I don't want this to be 3 hours long if I can help it. Uh, but there's quite a significant portion that are left in. But so in entry 10, the at this moment unknown author, but I feel like it's we're okay to say who is writing these. It's not a big spoiler.
Yep.
Um, so the author of these is Henriette Marin. Um, she is French, as far as we can tell. Uh, and she and her clan, her family, represent the butterfly symbols within the Black Armory gear and iconology.
Yep.
Um,
And the butterfly is going to be that's going to be very important going forward because that I think that plays a there's a significant.
yeah,
Anyway, go ahead.
there's a few scenes where that kind of has some poetic justice to it. But so begins Henrietta essentially saying um, that she has a daughter that sounds like has recently been born or is fairly young at least. Um, if I were to guess, they never say an age, but if I were to guess, I'd say around like 8 to 12 kind of age range. Um,
I was thinking even younger than that. I'm
maybe
thinking like a
so.
young girl.
Maybe so. Like I said, they never specify. Um, but she says a gigantic, ominous ball floats in the sky over other planets and terraforms them. If something like the Traveler exists, doesn't it stand to reason there's more out there we don't know? So many people treat the Traveler like it's not this completely alien thing that we still know nearly nothing about. Sure, we've benefited from it immensely, but so many people around the world put their blind trust in it, their faith even, to a fault, a huge one. So I found this interesting. So she immediately has a cautiousness around the Traveler and the idea of we are just blindly following this thing because it's been helping us, and it because this is all happening during the Golden Age,
Yep.
at this point in time during the entries, and it is interesting to see that the Golden Age didn't have any clue what the Traveler was doing, and we've seen this elsewhere, but this kind of reconfirms they didn't have any more information about the Traveler's motivations in the Golden Age than we do now.
I
Uh,
and I don't think any of that has changed in the last,
nope.
oh, I don't know, since the Traveler showed up.
Yeah,
It is
no.
still this big ass unknown in the sky. Like we genuinely have no clue what its purpose of being here, why it chose Earth. Like, and we've talked about this in previous episodes. The only thing unique to Earth itself, specifically Earth, is humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that uh, uh, Henrietta is like, we can't trust this thing.
Yeah.
Like, not just like a I don't want to trust this thing. Like we can't. Like if this thing just showed up and everyone was like, oh, pretty, awesome, cool, let's go play with it. What the hell else is lurking out there?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The tone I get from reading this is like her perspective is like, am I the only one that realizes we have a giant alien just giving us shit and think that's weird? Like,
Right. Like she's really she has that mindset of like, and it's funny too, because like, anytime I think of any type of like alien interaction, obviously the only thing we as humans have to go off of is Hollywood. And so I think of movies like Arrival or Contact or,
mm-hmm.
it's every time that we show an interaction there, it's very mysterious. It's very foreboding. It's very cautious. It's very like everything about meeting something that isn't from our planet, that is alive, that puts forth some sort of intelligence or life or whatever. is feared, is like we are genuinely scared of it in pretty much every depiction of uh, uh, aliens. I put that in quotations uh, in Hollywood, and so it's it's weird to me to think that like in the Destiny universe, everyone's just accepted this thing.
Yeah, and
And for Henrietta to be like the one person on the entire Earth, nay, the entire solar system, because we're in the golden age, people have branched out to Mars, to
yep,
Venus,
yep.
to Titan, to Io, literally the entire solar system, and she's just like, hey, maybe don't trust this thing blindly. Maybe
Well, and
maybe
she
think about it for a second.
she confirmed something here that I think is interesting as well, because I think we see some of this mirrored even in the present time in the Destiny world. She says, so many people around the world put their blind trust in it, their faith even. That implies to me that like, essentially religions have formed around the Traveler during the
Oh,
Golden Age.
absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely.
which I can't help but wonder, is the speaker, as we know it, just a remnant of one of those religions?
I think so. I think the Speaker. I think New Monarchy. I think Future War Cult. I think Dead Orbit. I think all of these factions are religions that formed around the Traveler. Because when you think about them individually, they all have some sort of centralized belief of what we should be doing to the Traveler and for the Traveler and with the Traveler and around the Traveler. Like I truly believe that all these factions are the end result of I don't want to say all religions because I don't I I think when the traveler shows up, and this is just purely me just spin foiling my hat around in my head. I believe that when the traveler showed up, humanity as a whole kind of looked at itself and was like, oh my God, what the hell? First, and then was like, well, this is clearly some sort of God. I mean, look what it's doing. It's turning it's turning planets habitable. This must be some form of godness or some sort of extraordinary power that we as humans don't understand, and so it's like the Vex turning to the darkness, like the Vex looking at the darkness and going, I don't understand how this works. It's outside of my understanding. I am therefore going to worship it as a god, and we've seen
Mm-hmm.
that throughout a lot of Destiny. Shiraido looking at Mara saying, should I worship you as a god because you're so confident in what's going to happen. It's like you are a god. And so that's interesting to me that wow, we really jumped off this. We went deep all of a sudden, and it's only been 5 minutes. It's interesting to me to think that that these different factions and the way that Henrietta describes it as people putting their blind faith into the traveler, that
Mm-hmm.
it isn't looked at as a religious symbol to some.
Yeah, and she approaches it as a from a perspective of have we given up too much in the pursuit of this faith? It says
Yeah.
we've let ourselves become hypnotized by the traveler into thinking we're all safe. We've let ourselves become naive about the world around us. We've let our guard down on a personal level, all in the name of achieving world peace, and all we claim because the traveler inspired us to do so. We're comfortable, complacent, unprepared for the next time fate tells to wash us all away. And make no mistake, it will. So she's already seeing this from the viewpoint of like, we have all gotten so comfortable that we can't defend ourselves if the time were to come where we need to. And she seems confident, even here, that that time will come. Um, and I think some of this is, well, I think a lot of it is spurred on by an instinct to protect her child.
Absolutely.
Because she says here, my daughter's not old enough yet to comprehend the traveler, but she is impressionable enough to become weakened by it like the rest of society should I let her. I will not let her. Uh,
And I think that's really the only clue we have as to like her
The
daughter's
age,
age,
yeah.
and that's like again, I think you might I took her as a very 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 young child, like literally like 5 or 6, maybe 7. But it's interesting to think of her as like 8 to 12. But I somewhere in that range definitely as far as.
Definitely
But
not
now here's
teenage.
a now here's a funny thing. We know human lifespan has tripled, so who's to say that growth hasn't changed?
Well, I don't think that's the case. And I only say that because if we look at Micah's story from the Penguins,
Hmm.
um, Micah was 10 years old and doing like thermodynamics and nuclear physics in his
That's true.
classes at the time. So, and I don't know that he mentions. I feel like he mentioned his parents' age in there somewhere or made a reference to it, and I don't feel like they were past 100 or something or something like that. I'd have to go
Sure,
back and look.
sure,
The impression I've gotten thus far though is essentially like the beginnings, the beginning stages of life are still very similar as far as like childhood and adolescence and
yeah,
teenage years and whatnot. All of those seem um, very very much the same as far as developmental cycle. It seems it's after reaching adulthood that it's just the adult life that has been
sure.
expanded, or at least that has always been my interpretation.
Which it jumping topics again, uh, which is interesting to think like if we know that the age lasts longer, but is the aging process itself different as in like when
Hmm.
if I were to look at somebody who is 250 years old, would they look as if they were 250 years old, or would they look like what we would consider if we consider a third of that,
Yeah,
you know 2/3 of that, whatever is a normal human lifespan? Would they look like they were just 60 or 70 to us?
that's a good question. I get the impression again that uh how to say like usable lifespan or I get the impression that someone that is like 100 in Destiny's world would appear and act the same as what we would equate to like a 40 to 50-year old.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Um,
I feel like that's pretty accurate. So I'm curious if like the like yeah, no, I think I think you're right in that in as far as that growth. And I know we are way off topic now. But I think you're right as far as like that adolescence period. And we could be wrong. Like when Micah talks about um he does specifically mention being 10, and then the fact that he becomes Micah 10
yeah, that
is very
may
significant.
it may
But
not be
10,
100% accurate.
right, 10 may not be 10 Earth years
Yeah, we don't know how they measure age. If they have a
because we know he was
universal
born on
calendar,
Mars.
I feel like they'd have to have some kind of
And
universal calendar.
because we know Mars spins fast, it takes Mars longer to go around the sun because obviously it has a wider orbit and a different speed and all that jazz.
Yeah,
Like so he could be 10 Martian years old, which would put him at
it should equate to something different. Yeah.
like 60 for Earth or something. I don't know the conversion, which now I know somebody is going to go look it up right now. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
But yeah, so
We're
we don't know what the
we don't know the age of the daughter, but she is not yet old enough to comprehend the traveler, but impressionable enough to be weakened by society's interpretation, essentially.
yeah.
And she's very intentionally going to keep her away from that weakness. Uh, so in the next entry, her suspicions, Henrietta's suspicions, are all but confirmed. Says we are not alone with the traveler. Something else has been detected out there, an anomaly of sorts. I'm lucky to have friends in informative places who tell me these things. So something, and there's only 15 entries between here. The first one's entry 10. The second one is entry 25. These are like journal entries of a sort. So
Yeah.
even if we're assuming like an entry once a month or something, um, it's this is they knew the darkness was coming. They didn't know what it was, but they knew
this is
something was
literally the
coming.
start of the collapse.
This is the
Like
very first indications that like trouble is on the
like
horizon.
possibly happening the same time that uh, Exodus Green is taken off.
Yeah, uh, maybe because I think there's a bit of time that passes between because we in the entries we actually get to the point where the darkness has arrived.
Yep,
And there's a number of entries between this and when that happens. Um, but definitely Exodus Green was at least in the preparation stage, if nothing else, like
sure,
getting ready
absolutely.
to launch. Um, so, so she's talking about like, uh, how are we supposed to? Oh, she's talking about like how she can defend herself and her family. It goes, but how are we supposed to do that when the means to defend ourselves are not in the people's hands anymore? Don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't understand those decisions. They make sense, but having a child changes your perspective on life. I won't feel comfortable unless I am the one doing something to protect my family. I can't be the only one. And I won't do it alone. I know just the right people who would appreciate the opportunity to be a part of something like this. Something that the powers that be would never sanction. But like I've said in the past, we don't know what else is out there in the universe. What we or our children or our children's children might have to face one day. So I found a particular line here interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, what are we supposed to do when the means to defend ourselves are not in the people's hands anymore? So it sounds like civilians have been disarmed.
So there's several things that I thought of while reading that as well. SIVA exists. The War Mind Network exists.
The Warmind Network exists, and
Clovis Bray exists.
yes. So, but it sounds like
The EXO program
weaponry.
exists. Like everything to me points here as like an average civilian. Like that blind faith
Yeah,
is very much like we don't even care anymore. Like it's not
we
even
don't
a
we don't
we're in a
need to
golden age.
defend
Like we
ourselves because we'll
there's
never
nothing
have
to
to
defend.
worry about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The traveler will provide type thing. And it's funny that I use those words because I didn't even think about it until I said that exact line. It's exactly what Mithrax says.
The
The light will
Elixni have a
provide.
very, very similar, I don't want to say zealotous, but a very profound religious connection to the
Yeah.
Traveler. Um,
And so for humanity to kind of see that same thing, now it doesn't seem as strange.
hmm
You know, like it seems odd when you think about it at first, but then like they humanity is I don't want to say like what you said, like completely disarm civilians, but there's no I don't want to say nobody cares or it doesn't matter anymore, but it almost seems that way, right? Like there's
it's
all the weaponry and all the things that need to exist to protect us
hmm
exist outside of our normal everyday life.
it's an odd dichotomy to see on one hand a person that's just a normal civilian at this point, not part of any special group or anything, saying like we don't have the ability to defend ourselves. Whereas on the other hand, we know for a fact that at the same time that this person is saying I don't have the means to defend myself, you have Clovis Bray making exos somewhat with the intention of making himself immortal, but also with the intention of having an army.
Yeah.
Uh, you have the Warmind Network, which is in and of itself a giant weapon.
It
You
is.
have
It's a weapon the size of the solar system. which it that alone, like that thought alone, a weaponry system of war sets that is the size of our solar system. That is freaking huge. So to think, so
Hmm.
it to me, it's not really a stretch that civilian life is just as peaceful and there's no reason for weaponry to even exist. Like
Yeah, I think the
how do you
only
fight some how do you come up with weaponry like if something were to attack the solar system and we have the Warmind system and we have the entire Warmind network and that fails, you're screwed. Like there's
yeah.
a weapon the size of the solar system just failed. There is nothing you as a civilian, as a military person, as a human race, as all of humanity is going to be able to do to outdo what just killed your entire army or your entire weaponry system.
Well, yes and no. Um, Now, one thing that I do find interesting is that we know Exodus Green left armed to the teeth. A Mostly
Did
because they didn't know what was out there, but the fact that it did leave as heavily, uh, weaponized as it did means that it had the ability to leave as heavily
yeah.
weaponized as it did. So like they existed somewhere. They talked about the not
I'm
antimatter, but
curious.
the matter rifles that the Awoken used that were leftovers from the shipwreck during the Theology War or
I
Theodicy
am
War.
curious. I am curious if Clovis was holistically militaristic and that he was the sole, like the Clovis everything.
He
Because
was the
obviously
one
all these,
making.
I'm thinking that he is the sole maker and creator of weaponry at the time. Just because of the war set, the Warmind program, the SIVA program, and the EXO program. All of that is Clovis.
That's true. That's true.
And
Um,
those are the main thing. Now, granted, when we look in game, we know we have things like Suros, we have Hake, we have Vice. You know, we have these
But
different
did
things
those
here.
weapon foundries come after the fact? Because
Exactly.
I don't know that there's any evidence that they were around during the Golden Age.
Right.
Say the
I think that all of these quote unquote weapon foundries were post collapse.
Yeah, I think so too. So generally speaking, then Henrietta is concerned because if something were to happen, she doesn't want to just blindly trust the systems at play. She wants the comfort of knowing that she is doing something, that she
Yeah.
is actively, doing whatever is possible to defend herself and her family. Um, and she apparently knows some people that
Yep.
are of the same mindset or that would be willing to help her. Um, And in the next entry, we discover who those people are. So she says, so this is what success looks like. We three putting a stake in the ground for what we believe in. Some may disagree with what we're doing. I don't care. We have to champion all that we hold dear. Who we are, our values, our cultures, all that we believe in as human beings. This is why we founded the Black Armory. I am so lucky to have found Helga and Yuki, my co-founders, who share these feelings so deeply. The Black Armory owes its continued success to them. I am in awe. Helga's formerly from Clovis Bray. She handles the business side of things. Yuki is our resident engineer, handles the science and mechanics of it all. We've become one big family. I couldn't be happier. So,
And this is Helga.
Helga
God, I can't remember Helga's
Rasmussen.
last name. Rasmussen
Yeah.
and Yuki Saito.
Saito. Yep.
Yep.
Uh, So we get introduced to these two characters, and say their stamps, just like Henrietta's, are all over the Black Armory gear.
Mm-hmm.
Helga Rasmussen is where some of the more Norse inspirations come from. in Black
Yep.
Armory gear. She is likely the creator of Jotun. So love it or hate it, blame her.
I
Uh,
I am 100% after reading Jotun's entry a few times.
mhm.
She's 100% behind it. Like,
And plus, it's
yeah,
got her symbol. So the
yeah.
Rasmussen clan's symbol is the hand. The green, usually green and gold
Hmm.
coloration, but the palm symbol is hers.
And
Uh,
from what I read about Jotun's entry and what I know about Helga, I think Jotun to be partial Black Armory tech, partial Clovis tech.
Powerful closer, absolutely, yes. Uh, and so she actually has had a couple sightings in the lore prior to this, during her time at Clovis Bray. Um, so
Ooh, I didn't
she
even think to look into Clovis Bray stuff after I realized that she was Clovis Bray.
So she very specifically worked on the EXO project. Now, it's unclear if she was there to see it to fruition. I don't believe so. However, she was there during the initial kind of Clovis figuring out how to make an EXO. Uh, so,
Now, was not to jump
mhm.
topics again. Do we know if the EXO program wholly started on Europa? Like was everything about the EXO program on done and thought of and created on Europa, or was there parts of it that was created either on Earth or some other place?
I don't know if we have confirmation one way or the other. I have been under the impression from most of the lore we've read, as well as where all of the lore regarding it is found, that it was entirely on Europa.
Okay.
Um, that's my interpretation, at least. I have not come across anything that I can remember that has suggested otherwise. And like I
And the only
said,
reason why I asked is because we know that
mm-hmm.
Exos Exo existed before the darkness with Radiolarian stuff, because
Yes,
the darkness with Radiolarian is what prevented them from having the disassociation.
right. But
Uh,
they were created prior to that. Just there were no
right.
successful creations. Um, and
Except for
so
Clovis 2, maybe. I don't know if you call that successful.
Yeah. It, eh.
Regardless, Helga worked
Regardless,
for Clovis.
Helga worked for Clovis, and this is kind of important. So she was a
I will
part of the
not
EXO
derail.
program. She was one of the scientists on part of the EXO program, and she shows up in uh, in the entry card called Test Number 312 EXO Arm Attachment. And in that test, they have attached an exo arm, a fully robotic exo arm, to an otherwise uh, normal human being, and this was kind of their first foray into like Clovis was all about trying to evolve humanity.
Yep.
He was all about trying to become a better human or whatever the next step of humanity was. And before he came upon the idea or the had the proof of concept for a fully like robotic body, he was trying to see how much of a human can I replace. Uh,
Like one bit at a time,
yeah. Needless to
which is
say,
just
this
fucked up.
this experiment did not go well. Uh, the robotic appendage ended up being too much of a draw, like from a on a biological standpoint, it drew too much from the body for the test subject to survive the test, as often goes with Clovis's tests. Uh, and Helga was the one overseeing this. Um, and she was very much she didn't like break down and call him a monster and all this thing, but she was very clearly not okay with just the callous nature that Clovis had towards these people. um and we know that she did She was there at least up until they had started experimenting with uh, injecting Vex Radiolarian into people to see what it did, essentially.
Yep.
Because there's another lore entry where she is not present, but she is mentioned by the scientists there, where they're injecting a person with Radiolarian and essentially watching them turn into a Vex. Uh, and someone says that, oh, we should probably have Helga here for this experiment. She's um, she knows the ins and outs of the engineering of these processes. And it's essentially, Clovis essentially says, no, I don't want her here. She doesn't always have the interest of pure science in mind. So already getting the vibe that she was kind of not okay with how things were going.
Absolutely. Like there's so eventually we will cover Clovis and we will learn. And well, I say we will learn. We will tell you as the viewer how freaking nuts this guy was. And some of you may delete
So
your
very.
exos after that. Some of you all may become awoken after that.
Others will make exos.
Others will make exos. This is very true. That is a very, very true statement.
So, needless to say, that's Helga's background coming into the Black Armory. Yuki Saito, we really don't have any other information about.
I couldn't find anything on her other than Black Armory
The
stuff.
only entries, yeah, I found were all related to the Black Armory, future events that we'll cover here in the Black Armory.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, and then and Yuki Saito is the Japanese influence within the Black Armory. Her clan symbol is the hook and the fish symbols that you
Hmm.
see on things like Izanagi's burden, um, and other weapons. Uh, so there's this little blurb from actually a quest. It was like the text of a quest that kind of explains their roles. So it says all three played a vital role in producing armory weaponry. Henrietta designed them, Helga built them, and Yuki perfected them. So it sounds like uh, Henrietta made the designs, made the schematics. Helga, being the engineer, actually built the things, and then Yuki, I'm assuming, did testing and iterations and like refining of those designs based on prototypes.
I'm curious if because I'm curious if Yugi is more like a software engineer.
Maybe so. Yeah.
That's what I always took it as because like when we think of guns with software in them, my first thought always goes to Darcy, right? Because
Yeah.
it is literally an intelligence in a gun uh, for it literally describes itself as intelligence in a gun.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious as to how much of the Black Armory weaponry has software in it to make it better than everything else around it.
It's implied at least through these lore cards that essentially Black Armory weaponry is the best stuff ever made during this time period.
Literally the greatest.
Like bar none, nothing else can touch it. Even
And it's
even Clovis technology can't touch what they're doing
yeah,
on the weaponry side of things.
and it's interesting too because when you look at the gun entries or the names of the guns themselves when you're looking through your collections, uh, the experimental versions are just regular guns, right? Like Gilliard. Gilliard is a normal auto rifle. Then
Hmm.
there's, or I think it's Gilliard 42, and then the experimental version is Gilliard 42 XN73821. So
Yep.
it's some not perfected version of Gilliard, but there's definitely some portion of it that has been changed to be this experimental type for
Yeah.
specifically for Black Armory prototyping use.
And actually, that's another cool point that they bring up. All of the weapons that are made from the Black Armory are all named after people that they knew
Yeah.
in some way, or have a representation of people that they knew in some way. So the thought being that like you are literally bringing a family member into the fray to defend your family,
Yep.
kind of thing, um, which I just kind of thought was interesting.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. It just it to me it kind of reinforces that family thought, right? Like that as much as these three people are not blood related, they very much view each other as a family, and the Black Armory itself is a family.
hmm yeah, and you can see that in especially in the exotics. Izanagi's burden is probably the most on the nose option. One, the burden of in this case the burden of like guilt in some cases felt by Saito.
Oh my God,
Uh,
you want a sad lore entry, and we'll get to that point in the story.
yeah,
Go read Izanagi's Burden shot for shot, and we'll probably end up doing that either in this episode or the next. If you don't cry, you're not real. You're not a human.
yeah. So you have that. You have Jotun, which is referencing the at least as I've read it, and I have not researched this, so I'm going off the cuff a little bit. But I always took Jotun to be uh, Jotun in the
Yeah,
Norse way, which I'm pretty sure were the frost giants,
I think so. I think you're
or
right.
giants of some sort. Um, and then La Monarque, Le Monarque, uh,
No. It's Lamana.
yeah, that uh, is the gun or the bow, I guess, not gun, um, attributed to Henrietta
Mm-hmm.
being you know she being French, the butterfly, the monarch butterfly, and that being the symbol of her clan. Uh, so very very personal for everyone in this group. Not only what they're doing and the
Yeah.
reasons behind it, but also what they're creating. All have these personal touches to them. Um, However, they weren't always on the same page as far as what the trajectory of the armory should be.
No. No.
So entry 41
At
here.
the end of the day, they definitely still have very much different visions for the
Yes.
armory.
Yeah, so entry 41. Our forge is up and running, the first of its kind. This is momentous for us, for the Black Armory. I should be thrilled, should being the key word. But I didn't ask to build a mobile weapon factory. I didn't come up with the idea. Helga and Yuki did. We're growing fast, too fast, which means mass production, which in turn means less control over our work, how it's distributed, who it's distributed to. It means more weapons to defend ourselves, yes, but not in every single person's hands. That was not my vision. Power without control leads to chaos. It's a give and take. And nothing says less control quite like placing portable weapon printers all around the world. Hell, they're even discussing putting them on other planets. So, what's being discussed here are what we were activating and using during the season of the Black Armory, during the season of the Forge. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the the pods, I guess, for lack of a better term, um, those were
Sure.
the forges that they created the first one of in this entry. And it sounds like Henrietta had this idea of a much more close knit, like we're gonna make a group and we're gonna defend ourselves, and we'll maybe reach out to others that we deem worthy of our weaponry. Uh, Whereas Yuki and Helga are more along the lines of like, hey, we need to get a weapon in the hands of every single human being so that they all have a chance of survival.
Which
Uh,
is funny too, because more recently, when I think of something in real world perspective, uh, because the new Matrix movie is coming out, and so I went back and watched them. And one of the lines in one of the movies is, "I'd put a weapon in every man, woman, and child and march them straight into the forefront to fight these things." So to me, that's very much a an idea
Mm-hmm.
that Helga and Yuki kind of have, but Henrietta not so much.
No.
Henrietta is very much like, yeah, family can have this, but Joe Blow neighbor guy, nah, he can be fodder. It's fine. I don't really care about him.
Yeah, and for lack of a better term, Henrietta is. I can understand her viewpoint. I can understand the concept of like, I don't want to give every single person one of my perfected technology guns because I don't know what every single person is going to do with them.
Yeah,
And you got to remember, darkness has not invaded yet. Like
not yet.
they are still working in pure hypotheticals right now. They're pretty sure something's coming. They don't know what that something is. They don't know for sure that that something is bad at this point.
And if I'm not
Uh,
mistaken, the Traveler is on Io at this point.
yes, the Traveler has not moved. Um,
So
so,
it's terraformed Mars, it's terraformed Venus.
hmm
Mercury has become its garden world, and it is now terraforming different moons. One of Titan, I think, has already been terraformed,
yep.
and now Io is being terraformed. Which it, I had to do some looking. What is Nessus?
Nessus?
Nessus, the place Nessus that we go to in Destiny. What is it?
I was pretty sure it was. Well, maybe it wasn't a moon. Um,
Because just today I found a interesting thing that made me question everything about Nessus, and it's up near the crash ship where when you're playing through the old Red War campaign, the crash ship is where you first find signs of failsafe, and then the Cade as well, because you're going to Nessus to look for Cade, and then up above it, there's a little ledge sticking out from a Vex wall that's a scannable, and you scan it, and it says Nessus has phased into our solar system for the last 127 years.
so, um, Nessus is a real place. Just
It is?
putting that out there. It
Okay.
is a real place, known as Nessus 7066. It is a centaur or minor
Yeah.
planet with an irregular orbit around Saturn. Um, Located beyond Saturn in the outer solar system, but is closer to the sun than Uranus. So
So it's not exactly a planet, but
it's
it's not a moon of something.
no, essentially my understanding from this little blurb on Wikipedia is, you have planets like Earth, you have dwarf planets like Pluto, and then
No, no, no,
Centaur.
no, no. Don't you bring that Scientology BS in my chat. Pluto is a damn planet. Fight me. It
Pluto
is. It's
doesn't
just a dwarf
exist in
planet.
Destiny yet, so I don't care about it.
Frickin'
Uh,
Pluto. Stupid Pluto. Poor guy.
all I'm
He can't
saying,
catch a frickin' break. So you're
Pluto
saying
was the
Ness?
one that had the first opportunity to stop the darkness, and it didn't. So,
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. He just sat
but
there, just a dwarf, just
yep,
oblonged orbit around the sun at the very edge of our solar system, going, nah, it's
no,
fine, bro.
no, it's
It's
cool.
fine. It's
Uh,
cool.
they're dicks anyway. He'll be fine. Uh,
It's fine. They don't even classify me as a planet anymore. They can't decide. Fuck them. There, it's fine.
so
Uh,
yeah, smaller than that. Like,
which, if we think of the nines, it's literally the nines inside Pluto, like the essence of Pluto, going, "Fuck these guys, man. They won't even acknowledge me as a planet, but as a real planet. They can't decide if I'm a dwarf planet or a real planet. I'm a person, man. Well, I'm an entity. I don't even know what person is, so I'm a thing. But yeah, screw these guys. I'm betting he was one of the five.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
betting he was one of the five that was like, screw humanity. I'm gonna go join the darkness. Little comedy for our
Yeah,
future episodes of the Nine and past episodes of Talked About Nine.
they will have their own episode
They
someday.
will have their day,
Maybe someday soon. We'll see.
and
But
they're not real people anyway, so I don't care about them.
yeah, they won't know. Uh, so so
Nessus is smaller than Pluto, though, so
Nessus is smaller than Pluto. It's
it's
a
not a
centaur.
moon.
That's
It
what
is
they
a
call it.
centaur planet. So,
Yep.
and that's what I was trying to figure it out too, because every time I kept reading about it, it seemed like it was like a distant planet or something like that.
Well, and it
But it's
is, it's before after Saturn, but before Uranus. Like
and very
it's
recently discovered. Like it was only discovered in like 1993.
yeah, yep. Um, so I think the lore entry you found of it being phased into our solar system, I wonder if the Traveler literally dragged it closer to the sun as part of its terraforming.
Could have been
Uh,
because we know that when it hauled ass past Titan, Titan literally like
shifted.
elongated and shifted back into a sphere and like almost to an egg and then out to a sphere. Like it
Yeah.
destroyed it destroyed Titan by zooming past it so fast. So we know that it has some sort of gravitational, which, and we've talked about this too. Anything with mass inherently has to have gravity because gravity is a property, or yeah, gravity is a property of mass, or vice
Yeah.
versa, one or two.
Though, though, I'm gonna get a little off rails here, and then we're gonna have to reel it in. But
Oh, we've been off rails for like 20 minutes, man. I don't know where you've been.
given the size of the Traveler, because you gotta realize we can see it. We can look in the
Yeah,
tower and stare at
absolutely.
it. It's big, but it's not that big.
Right. It's not
So
like planetary
how
big. It's not the size of a moon.
freaking dense does that thing
That's
have to have a gravitational pull to affect a planet?
on a moon, not a planet,
A
not a
moon. You're
planet.
right. You're
It
right.
hasn't. We haven't seen it have any effect on Earth, and we haven't seen it have any effect on Jupiter or Saturn or even Mars or Mercury or anything like that. As far as planets, we know that it is not dense enough to affect the gravity of a planet, but it is dense enough to affect the gravity of a moon.
Well, no, you know what? I've solved it right there. So it was using this is gonna be silly, but you never know. Uh,
Are are you gonna
the
are you I know where you're going. In my head, I already know where you're going with
I
this,
don't
but go
I don't
ahead.
know if
I'll
you
allow it.
I don't know if you do. So the original subclasses and arguably even stasis, as we've talked about, are all based on real astrophysical. I don't want to say elements, but properties.
We'll say properties. I like the word properties.
Void is based on gravity.
God damn it!
We
I knew
know
it. I knew it. I knew you were gonna do this. Go ahead.
we know that void has through the use of things like blink has the ability for transportation. So perhaps being the supplier of light, it makes sense the traveler can also use the abilities of light. Maybe it was just voided up as it was shooting across the solar system, and that's how it was shooting across the solar system. And by nature of void being a force of gravity, it had more gravity at the time it was doing
I hate you.
that.
I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. It's like you live in my mind. It's like the two of us literally just live in the same mind, and we're just sharing it between each other every once in a while.
Well, it's my turn now.
That was literally the thought that I had. I was like, all right, if he brings the thought that void is a property and void is and you did, you went there. All right, you
All right. Well,
continue on
we're gonna reel
with
back.
your
We're gonna reel back.
continue on with your Black Armory BS, your
uh,
anti-traveler rhetoric. Is that what
rhetoric,
Yeah,
propaganda. Yeah.
propaganda. Your anti-traveler propaganda.
Yeah. So, needless to say, they the Black
Keep
Armory.
rolling. I'm gonna go grab a drink.
All right, the Black Armory has has decided, and Henrietta, despite having misgivings towards it, has still greenlit the production of these weapon factories, these forges, and they're planning to put them all over Earth and on other planets, as we see, comes true, because we interact with these forges on other planets during our time in the season of the Black Armory.
It's not even a real planet. It's whatever.
So, entry 50. T- Today I gave Helga a piece of my mind. She came to me with another opportunity for the armory, another chance to increase our production, but this project is really crossing a line for me. Exos. I never liked the idea of them in the first place. They're not humans. They don't have a soul. They're nothing but the experiments of humans playing God. Since when has that gone well? If one day they decide they don't like the rest of us, what recourse do we have? It'll be slaughter. Thinking about combining that technology with ours makes me sick. So, there's a part
To
two
me,
to
that
this as well.
like to
But
me that portion of that says that there is some sort of software in the guns.
yeah,
Because what is software to a computer other than the soul of a computer?
a lot of ones and zeros. Uh,
Hey, you shut your mouth. Get that traveler and rhetoric out of here.
so, but what
I,
this?
I also think of X. So it's funny when she says that line of they don't even have a soul. There's an episode of Family Guy where Chris is talking to Brian. He's like, "You're a dog. You don't have a soul." And in my head, I'm like, "That's Helga just looking at Exo like, you're an Exo. You don't have a soul." And the Exo's just like, "Ouch,
Yeah.
rude."
So it's an interesting. There's a couple tidbits here. One, this is just kind of reinforcing Henrietta's person personality, or I don't know if prejudice is the right word, but the tendency
I
to
think
not,
prejudice is.
yeah, the she doesn't want to believe in anything that isn't a something she perceives as a human.
Yeah,
Um, and at first it was the Traveler, and now it's Exos. Exos are different. They aren't people. We can't trust them. I don't want to deal with them. Uh,
absolutely.
and going so far as to say they don't have a soul. I At this point in time, I don't know. We talked about this a little bit before with the Penguin episode and Micah 10. Uh, I don't think that it's common knowledge that the Exos are people,
No,
are consciousnesses in a robot body. I very much think the general public perception is that they are just robots, essentially.
yeah,
Very,
I
very well-made AI robots.
100% with you on this one. Like I don't think. I think it is a long time. Like I think it's through the collapse and even then some. Like that. I don't want to say we as humanity realize that they are what they are. That they are human consciousness in a robot body. But it like even up until um, Beyond Light itself,
Hmm.
we as the player still didn't really have a full understanding of
Of
what
what they
exos
were.
were.
Yeah.
And so I think the entire Destiny universe is under that same assumption up until Beyond Light. Like when we finally start reporting our findings back to Zavala and Ikora and Cade, well, like wow, that got awkward real quick. Uh, he's dead.
Well, Cade knew about the Deep Stone Crib, and
He did.
technically, we learned about these, about the origins of Exos, or had uh, a glimpse into it from Cade's journals. Back to where we were. Helga wants to bring in Clovis and Braytek, to utilize the exo technology to make the Black Armory's products better, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, and so we saw that Henry was very much against this and had, gave Helga a piece of her mind. But we can also see some of Helga's side to this argument through the Jotun card, the Jotun lore card.
Hmm. Yep.
And in there, Helga sends to Henrietta, "Look, you sought me out, brought me here to this project in large part because of my connections. This is the gold mine, and I know I haven't said the best things about them in the past, had my share of hiccups with them. They're not perfect, but again, neither are we. What the armory is doing, many would lump us both together. I know that's not the best sales pitch, so let me put it in perspective. Enemy of my enemy. It's that simple. We're all prepared to fight the same threat, whatever it may be, and we all stand to lose the same things. Our best bet is to stand together, and we start that process here, one step at a time. Exos are the future, and we can help make them better than ever." So we learn a little bit more later on about what their actual what Helga's idea is of a better than ever EXO, and exactly what kind of integrations of technologies they want here. Um, but presumably this goes well enough that the Black Armory does end up with some Braytech resources. Uh,
Something. Whether
something.
it's a creation pod, whether it's schematics, whether it's software, something from Clovis Bray Industries is brought into the Black Armory.
Yes. So this argument happens on entry 50, and then our next entry skips ahead to 67. So presumably a little bit of time has passed here. Like I said, we don't know if these entries are once a day, once a month, once a week. Who knows? Um, but some time has passed. Uh, and this entry starts with: "The traveler is on the move, and they say it's coming here, to Earth. I didn't take the news of Titan's evacuation seriously enough. I should have. I should have listened to Helga and Yuki. This is bigger than just me. It's about all of us. If Project Niobe can help humanity, then it's our duty to press forward with it. If it means working closely with some unsavory types, sometimes that's the cost of protection." So this is Henrietta kind of coming to terms with the fact of like, okay, this isn't about
This is
me and
real,
my bias. This is happening, and we need to do everything in our power to
which is
defend
which is
ourselves.
genuinely mind blowing. Like it's like we knew that there was an anomaly out there, right? And now, and that was all the way back in entry 10 or entry what
I think 25.
25. Okay,
Yes,
so we're in
25.
entry six. So we're in entry 67 now. Okay, if let's say these things are in once a month, that's like what 30 something months. That's 3 years.
Yeah.
If
Uh,
they're once a year, then
they're definitely not once a
you,
year.
you know what I mean? Like if
But
they're
yeah,
even just once a month, we're talking a 3 year time span from the time that they were like, hey, we need to get this stuff going to holy shit, travelers hauling ass. Titan got ripped apart. Titan got destroyed. Which there's a whole entry on the last days of Kraken Mare, which is literally the last humans on Titan as the traveler whisks by and says, "I'm out."
yeah.
So yeah, so it's very. I don't want to say not disheartening. It's very for
It's that moment where that sense of, so when you know something, when you see the possibility of something bad happening, you know, whatever that may be in real life, but everyone has had that scenario where they know that, oh, this may not turn out all that well. And then when you get to that moment and the realization that like No, it really isn't. Like it's that bad thing really is happening. Like there's that panic, that
Yeah,
dread, and I have to think that is what Henrietta is feeling right now. I'm sure what
absolutely.
all of them are. Um,
At first I think of it as like a self fulfilling prophecy, but that's more of like if well, you know, I told you this was going to happen type thing,
yeah,
and for her it's less of a oh I told you so and more of a oh God, I didn't I knew it would be bad. I didn't calculate for it to be this bad.
right. Well, and I also think like up until this point, it's always been preparation for an
Hmm.
unknown something, and they always had the chance that whatever this anomaly wasn't hostile.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it's also the realization of like, no, things are, you know,
Now it's real.
bad things are happening. Like it's
This has
gone from
come to
preparation
destroy
to,
us.
actual defense.
Yep.
Um, and we see that reflected very clearly in the very next entry. So from 67 to 68, so just a single entry between in this case. Um, says they are here and they are real. I can't believe we were so right and so wrong. To think that we could stop this, to say we were naive would be an understatement. We simply didn't know. Their power, their strength, it's insurmountable. As they draw closer, all we can do is hide and hope that the facility doors will be strong enough. It's utter chaos out there. Too many put their faith in the traveler. I don't know what sort of answers people expect from a gigantic ball in the sky. It remains silent, as always. At least I'm with her. Being with family is what matters in the end. There is no more hope, only the screams of humanity. So,
That shit got dark real fucking quick.
this is one of the few accounts we have from somebody going through the invasion of the darkness.
The actual invasion, the full like we had a little bit of Mara and the exit screen, but that was a fleeting second compared to what
And that
Helga and I keep forgetting her name,
Henrietta.
Henrietta
Yep.
and Yuki, that the three of them and whatever's left of Black Armory, I'll call it Black Armory Labs, but
Yeah.
you know whatever you want to call them, they are about to experience everything. Like this is what I think of like the apocalypse, the beginning of the end. Like there is no hope. There's only the screams of humanity. Like it's dark. Like it shit just got real and it got dark real fast.
Well, and what this tells us, and we don't know. There are no descriptions of it here or in any of the other few accounts that are out there. Um, is that when the darkness invaded, it wasn't just it wasn't just a force or a singular entity. You know, the darkness, the winnower. Like this was an invasion, and there were things out there that the darkness brought with it that were instigating this cleansing, that were there, tearing these worlds apart, en masse. So could that have just been Hive? Maybe. um they're or Taken, I suppose. uh
Or even Fallen.
I don't think it would have been Fallen.
They would have been too attached to the light.
Yeah, like I don't think that. Well, the darkness would not have used the Fallen as because there's never been a connection there. Like the Elixni have certainly come after humanity to try and get the Traveler back, but they suffered at the hands of the darkness via the whirlwind just as much as humanity does during the collapse. I don't see them. Yeah, I don't foresee
So
them. being
So the
servants
fallen are
of.
very much kind of caught. The fallen and us are basically caught in the crosshairs of a battle that we don't even know that we're fighting.
Yeah, yeah. In a lot of ways. And I don't believe the Elixni came onto or the truly the Fallen at this point came onto the scene until after the collapse, until after the darkness had invaded and retreated. Um, because it talks more about them like scavenging the remains of humanity, not necessarily being the instigators that led to the collapse. Um, but there's something out there, be it something we've seen already as guardians or something that we have yet to cross paths with. Something came with the darkness and tore the world apart. Uh, and they talk about it a little bit here and there. Says the howling is loudest at night. By dawn the quiet returns, and with it the horrid smell that brings the dogs. I long for the moment I can pry those doors open and leave this place. So they're essentially just huddled in a bunker. Uh, very, very Fallout style. You know,
I
in
I
a.
personally saw that as the old Niobe, um, the old Burgosia Forge.
I think that's exactly what it is. Uh,
I think that's where they're at. I think the fact that that forge is in the European dead zone, and we know that all these guys are in Europe right now.
yep. No, I think
I
that's
100% believe
exactly
that to be,
because the
yeah,
Burgosia Forge, that entry level of the Burgosia Forge, is where the Niobe Labs
yep,
challenge took place,
yep,
and the
where we had to
Niobe,
open that door.
yep, and the Niobe project is what they were working on at the time.
Yep.
So I think that's absolutely where they were. Uh, so now we get to entry 71, which is where these things that have been going bump in the night uh, make themselves known in a physical sense. It says, last night we awoke in the middle of the night to the sound of something pounding on the walls. It roared and stomped and howled in frustration until it found the doors. They didn't hold. I never saw it. We were too occupied blindly firing around a corner. I just remember the smell of wet earth and a sound I've never heard before, like a machine being stretched and compressed. When it was over, we'd lost members of the Black Armory family, and the thing, whatever it was, got away. I lost one of my sisters, Helga. So, something broke in.
We
Whatever one
don't
of
even
these.
know. Like I can't even. In my head, I'm trying to figure it out. Was this a fallen? No, I think we hit it right on the nose there. Like the fallen and the darkness, I think have no connection. I think you're 100% on the nose there. That they and us are just we're just caught in the middle of a battle that we haven't
Hmm.
that we truly have no purpose or meaning of in being part of, but we just happen to be there.
Yeah.
Um, the, to me, and then like a machine being stretched and compressed. Okay, well, to me that says Vex. Is this a true Vex invasion here? I don't know. We know that Clovis Bray was screwing around on Europa with a Vex portal. We know that Mercury is a Vex world. We know that Nessus has tons of Vex there as well. It's maybe,
So,
but the howling to me, the howling comes back to Hive.
I'm not sure. I'm of the mindset that this may be something we have not come across yet in game.
We've never even seen
Um,
yet.
and they very intentionally, I
Could this
think, don't
could
give
this
us.
possibly be could this possibly be what we know as the Veil or the Darkness, the Army?
Maybe so. That's kind of what my mind goes to because they very intentionally do not give us a description. They specifically say that no one saw it, no one that survived saw it enough to provide a description. Um,
They're literally
and
flying or shooting around blind corners,
the
like just
smell
just
of
spraying bullets.
yeah, they're just spraying around a corner. The smell of wet earth and a sound I've never heard before, like machines being stretched and then compressed. I I would need to look it up to be sure, but I feel like we have heard that sound described similarly somewhere else, and I want to say it was on the Glycon, but I don't remember for sure.
Ooh,
And if it was on the Glycon, we know the Glycon was directly talking with the darkness, the entity.
the entity. This would
So,
have to be this would have to be of I think man I think that this is the darkness. I think this is its personal army. I don't think it's the more and more I'm thinking about it like that, the more and more I'm thinking this isn't the hive. This isn't the when the speaker talks about the darkness came and that was the end of everything.
hmm
I truly think that there was a darkness army. I think there was an army that was whatever we want to call it. Like if we want to call it the Veil, which is about the only thing we have to go off of, and that's just a
yeah,
very very obscure D1 prototype, uh, not prototype,
concept art.
concept art, and whatever that direct army is, because like we think of Taken too, like Taken, we know is now it's just a power. It's an ability that can be used. It in itself is not necessarily darkness, and the Taken themselves are not necessarily the darkness's army.
No, they're just being controlled, being manipulated. Um,
Yeah,
in the same way that stasis is not the darkness. It is a
right.
power
Stasis is a tool of the darkness.
deriving from the force, the darkness, but it is
Yes, not the entity of the
not the
darkness, not
entity, the
the not the
darkness.
not the place of the darkness. Like it's man, I I I think we're on something here. I think this is the maybe not the only, but I think this is the only written account of darkness, of an army of darkness being used during the collapse, and this is what survived.
So there's one other account that comes to mind um, of somebody that was there during the time that uh, the darkness was attacking and was directly attacked by presumably one of these beings, if not the entity darkness itself. And that person is our good old Cade 6. Uh,
Fuck.
I'm trying to
Right.
find the entry now, but he describes in one of his journals essentially what were his last moments prior to being um, prior to becoming a guardian. His death prior to becoming a guardian, and kind
Because
of the
he's not
experience of
and he is not. Let's see if I can put all these words in order. Um, Exos. When we think of an exo, when we look at an exo and we call it by its name, a name and a number, that is how many times that exo was reset. Not that's how many times he was risen and reset as a guardian. So
True.
Cade
Yep.
6,
Had
when
six
Cade 6
resets.
had already had 6 resets. So, and I think a majority of these exo resets happened with while Clovis Bray was fighting the exos, or sorry, not the exos, fighting the Vex in the portal that he built. Now, we know that the Vex manipulated the piss out of Clovis, and possibly the Darkness did the same. We're not 100% sure. Like, I mean, I, I say we're not. Darkness totally manipulated him as well. Like, there's no one way about it. But when we think of that, when we think of it as Cade Six's um, last words of being alive, it wasn't like this was Cade's 5 words. This was literally Cade Six, his final words, or his final thoughts, entry, whatever, and then he dies and becomes the Guardian Cade Six.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead with your entry.
Yeah, so I still haven't found that exact one, but I did stumble upon something else that's interesting.
Jesus
Uh,
Christ! If we just found like 30 entries that deal with the collapse itself, I'm just gonna.
so this
I don't
this is
know.
not dealing with the collapse. However, it's interesting. This is dealing with the Drifter and what he discovered on the planet of ice that he goes to, which
Got to be Europa.
this is not a Drifter episode. It was not Europa. Um, say if you have not looked into the lore behind the Drifter, you really should because he has dealt with some crazy ass shit.
he's he's been through some
Uh,
shit, man. He is. If anyone in this universe deserves to be nuts, it's him.
yeah. So he, along with
Not
a number
deserves.
of other
I guess
Guardians,
deserves is too strong a word.
yeah,
If anyone in this universe
is
is
entitled
allowed
to
to be
be.
nuts, is
Yeah,
entitled to be nuts. Yeah, he's
it's him.
yeah. You go
Um,
nuts, dude.
so the Drifter, along with a fire team, not of Guardians, but just of Risen at this point, of Light Bearers, um, were essentially treasure hunting and ended up in this ice planet, and they came across beings on this planet that were imprisoned in the ice. And he described them as the creature looked like it shared common bioenergetics with the hive, but there were no records then, or since, that I've ever seen of humanity encountering them. And the feature and these had a property that the hive do not. They produced a field that suppressed light. Uh, so he,
That's darkness. Like that is literally the armies of darkness. That is literally like when you come up to the pyramid ship in the moon while you're doing Shadowkeep, the darkness suppresses the light in your ghost and talks through your ghost.
so I would not be surprised if what Drifter found encased on this ice planet are very similar beings to what were used to
But what ice
attack.
planet?
I need to dive into his story to bring that up. I know for a fact it was not Europa. This was outside of our solar system. Um,
Holy shit.
he has traveled far. Uh,
I
it
didn't realize he had
was
traveled that far.
if I recall correctly, he has gone outside of our solar system and gone to other systems within the galaxy. Uh, but
Coming
all of
soon
that,
to a myth
all
and
of that for a
stories near
different day.
you. The story of the Drifter.
This is our teaser. Uh,
Quick teaser.
so, so we bring us back to this event. This thing breaks into the Black Armory, kills a number of the members, including Helga, and we learn that Henrietta's daughter was also injured in the attack, and she has fallen unconscious. That was entry 72. The next entry is 92. I'm told this is bigger than me, that I'm not allowed to forget that. Again, who in their right mind could do that? Who in their right mind? Their right mind. Maybe that's it. Why I'm considering this. In all my desperation, I'm not really in my right mind. This whole thing was about life. It still is. It has to be. So I'll do it. I have to do it. For her. So Henrietta is having to deal with a choice of some sort here. Um, I presumably around her daughter, based on saying she has to do this for her. Uh, and it's something very, very difficult for her to do. Um, but she's just come to the point of desperation that she needs something to come out of all of this at this point.
Now it's past the point of like we're fighting for humanity. We're fighting. It has now officially become personal.
Yes.
Like I need her to survive. I need to do this for her.
So we come to entry 93 immediately after. Yuki is in the lab. It's happening right now. My anxiety is out of control. The universe is getting smaller every day as humanity is dismantled piece by piece. If we don't stop the bleeding, what will become of us? In the end, all my reservations about manufacturing guns are gone. We have no other choice. I hope everything goes well. Rushing the process might not have been a good idea. This sort of thing have never this sort of thing has never been done here on Earth. We're definitely not going to be able to call Clovis Bray in case of hiccups. My life's work is in Yuki's hands right now. So, reinforcing that humanity is being dismantled piece by piece across the system. Every settlement is being attacked, presumably. Um, and that they are, the process that is happening in Yuki's lab is something that they are only able to do because of equipment or resources that they have received from Clovis Bray prior to this.
And I took this as two things. The first one being the first one being the man this I'm gonna cry again. I know I am. This sort of thing done on Earth. We're definitely not going to be able to call Clovis Bray in case of hiccups. That to me says they are putting a human consciousness into an exo.
Yes. And
Everything about those two sentences says that A, it's literally never been done anywhere other than Europa.
that's my
Certainly not on
impression as
Earth.
well.
And
Um,
B, they kind of don't have a clue what they're doing.
right. Helga was the only one that had worked at Braytech prior to this that
And
we
she was
know
killed
of.
in the attack.
She was killed in the attack, and she was working at Braytech as an engineer, not necessarily someone dealing with the actual consciousness transfer.
And I'm
Um,
thinking that, and because of this, the fact that Yuki is working on it, that to me reinforces the thought that Yuki is a software engineer.
that would certainly lend credit to it. Uh, but it's incredible to think about the fact that not only are they doing this, but they're doing this with people that, you know, maybe, hopefully, Helga has divulged all info that she knew about the EXO program, but Helga seemingly left before the EXO program was completed.
Yep.
And Yuki, who is the one doing all of this work right now, was not part of Braytech, has not done anything with Exos prior to this, presumably. Uh, and yet is now entrusted with you know with doing this with turning a person into an exo.
And
Um,
there's so many questions I have here. Like the the obvious one being, where the hell did they get an exo body? Did they just straight up build it? Did they find one? Did they come across one? Did the Forge make one? We know the Forge is used for making weapons. did it just make a body? Did they just do whatever they could do to make a body with it? Like,
So
how did they come up with the idea? If nobody knows that exos are a human conscious in an exo, how do they know that this will work? How do they know that this is a thing?
so in my opinion, I think some of these questions are answered later on.
Okay.
Um, but I can only assume that Helga knew what Clovis Bray's eventual like what his end game was. She knew that he
Naturally.
wanted to eventually put human minds in exobodies. And by nature of him having exos, she maybe just assumed that he succeeded and
Yeah.
assumed correctly if she did. Um, I also assume that she would have shared any and all intel with her Black Armory counterparts. So maybe at one point they believed, like everyone else, they were just AI in a robots. Um,
And I'm curious if that was brought on because the collapse was coming, or the collapse was happening. So because that collapse was actively happening, now Helga's like, I need to tell you this in case if I don't survive type thing.
I think it was before that even.
You think
Uh,
so?
I'm under the assumption that Henrietta eventually uh, succumbed to Helga's Helga's pestering about like we want to work with Braytech on this. Um, I'm
I'm
assuming
curious. I'm curious if that's because of like Jotun's entry of
yes,
exos are the future.
that's where I'm taking it. I'm assuming that they did contact Braytech or Clovis Bray and were provided with an exobody with the intention of creating a prototype of their Project Niobe. Uh,
So here's a question: did Clovis do this because he was still having trouble with DER?
I
And
don't think so.
was this his way of getting someone else to fix his problem, and then him possibly come back and take all the credit for it?
I don't think so. Because a couple of reasons. We saw during Micah's story that his uh, one of his parents, I forget which one of his fathers was the one that pioneered the DER idea,
Yep.
and there are exos already out in the world at this point. Um,
Okay.
like I don't get the impression that he's providing them these resources because he wants the exo problem to be fixed. I get the idea that they are promising him they can make his exos, exponentially better than they already are, and he wants to pirate that technology essentially.
Are we thinking weaponized exos?
I think that's absolutely what he wants. And by nature of what Project Niobe ends up being, I think he could have done it if given the chance.
Or time?
Yep. So, uh, say next entry, they're still in the lab. Henrietta, I sealed the damaged entrance as best I could. The busy work helped me ignore what was happening in the lab, what's still happening. But we can't stay here. They're going to attack again, and this time we won't make it. There's no time to finish the process in the labs. We'll have to do it on the road. We leave at dawn. Not only are they doing all this crap, potentially for the first time, with kit bashed equipment and who knows what state of affairs after this attack, but now they're going to do it while mobile. Like,
That's crazy.
holy cow.
That's straight crazy.
But we do have to remember by nature of the Black Armory technology being superior to everything else in the Golden Age. These three women have made technology superior to everything else, including the giant company that Braytech is. Like they must be. geniuses amongst geniuses.
Absolutely.
To
Absolutely. 100%.
So if
And
anyone could do it,
to even think about trying to do this idea of putting a human consciousness into a robot, you got to be a little crazy, a little groundbreaking, 99% genius. Like there's
yeah.
so much in this that says to me that these people of the Black Armory, not just the three founders of it, but like literally everyone in the Black
Hmm.
Armory are quite possibly superior to everyone at Clovis Bray.
Oh yeah, I
Like
think
Clovis Bray
absolutely.
got like the top 2%, and then like Bray Black Armory got like the top 1%.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're just a little better.
So prior to them leaving, there's a very short entry. It says, "I buried her remains this morning. Yuki and I had a short ceremony. No time to look back. We have to leave." This is left, I think, intentionally ambiguous. Um, I buried her remains this morning. Yuki and I had a short ceremony. This could be this could be Helga, who I think is who it was that they buried.
I don't know.
Uh,
I took it as her daughter.
that's the other
I took it
interpretation,
as
and it's very possible as
100%
well.
took it as her daughter.
Um,
But I'm not sure just because of the next entry.
right.
What? But because the next entry makes it even more confusing.
So, yeah, but I don't know if it's her daughter by nature of the fact that they are traveling, um, in this. So next entry, entry 99. Only.
Because real quick,
Hmm.
if we think about entries, entry 71 was where the attack happened and they lost Helga. 72 is where her daughter's unconscious,
Yeah,
and then
we're in the 90s.
90 93 is where Yuki's in the lab. It's happening now, and then 95 is I buried her remains. So I mean, we're talking basically 20 entries between the night of the attack and
So
we've got to move.
even
We got to leave.
even if that's an entry a day, that's still almost a month.
Right.
So yeah, that would it would make more
I
sense to be her daughter then.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Um,
And the thing that blows my mind, like if we are now getting into like entries are per day, like maybe the first couple entries were like per month, per year, maybe.
mhm.
But then like when we get into like the 90s, like it feels like it's literally every day.
Yes.
Like this is now a daily
Yeah.
journal.
No, and I think so. I think there was a certain catharsis to writing the events that Henrietta
Mm-hmm.
had. Like she could escape for a little bit via writing in the journal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so entry 99. Only Yuki, myself, and three more of our Black Armory family remain. Well, the five of us and the XO. I only caught a glimpse of her so far. So much as riding on that metal and synth body. We woke her today. I can't look her in the eye. So, Yuki,
That to me 100% says something. I don't know if we want to reveal it now or if we're gonna kind of hold suspense for a bit.
let's hold suspense for a bit if we can.
Okay.
And say I think some may have guessed already, but uh, so they now have this EXO. This EXO is what Yuki has been working on in the lab prior to this. Um, and they just woke her up. Uh, and Henrietta, prior to this, having a very um, cautious approach to exos in general, to say the least, is probably struggling with this in a number of ways. Um, but so this exo that's now part of their party, In the next entry, it talks a little bit more about them. So, as the Exo has so many questions for me. I have some for her too, but our current situation isn't the time or the place. We took fire on the road this afternoon. Fortunately, they were not as heavily armed as we were. My fears of putting weapons in the hands of everyone have come true. Humans just can't be trusted. We have the same enemies, you idiots. Even as the bones of civilization are picked clean, we continue to fight one another. So the people that they took fire from as they're, you know, evacuating their lab to try and find somewhere safer were other humans. Uh, Presumably, well, it doesn't say that they were wielding Black Armory weapons, but weaponry in general.
Yeah.
And so we can see here that humanity or those that survived the initial invasion, the initial wave of
As you,
attacks.
as as shitty as this part is, where it's like fuck human versus human, like we're now officially warring with each other for the last bits of whatever it is to survive, whatever we think survival is now. And then they're like, well, fortunately, they weren't as heavily armed as we were, which
Yeah,
means the Black Armory really knows their shit when it comes to guns.
yeah.
Like,
uh, so, but what this tells us is that civilization in general, in those that survived the initial wave of the darkness, has dissolved to the point of every man for themselves.
yep,
Shoot first, collect what little you can off the bodies, and keep going.
yep,
Kind of,
one hundred
world that
percent
this is
survival
right
mode.
now.
Whatever that survival means, survival. Full stop.
Yep. So the next entry here, 104. We had some downtime, so Yuki wanted to test the Exo's new functionality. This was the entire purpose of the Exo in the first place. Project Niobe. Helga's great experiment to make our weapons more deadly through a sort of on-the-spot phase transition of the guns. In other words, a walking, talking forge. Years ago, it was just an idea. Now, it's a reality. Seeing the Exo discover her ability was, well, thrilling. It was nice to feel something other than dread for a few minutes, and a few minutes was about all we got. So I'm going to stop here for a second. So this informs us of a couple things. It gives us something of a timeline. When Helga first thought about this project, which I assume was the Jotun entry,
Mm-hmm.
was years ago, which gives us some indication of how much time has passed, at least a number of years.
Yep.
Um, the other thing, I want to talk a little bit about the Exo's special ability. Um, so the Exo can be a walking talking forge. So essentially, the way I envision this working, and the way that we've actually seen it work, uh, is that this Exo can take a piece of weaponry or parts to a weapon and synthesize them into a Black Armory style or Black Armory grade uh, piece of weaponry. Um, so this is an exo that can produce the same level of munitions that the Black Armory was producing, uh, and is as mobile a forge as you could ever hope for.
Walking, talking forge.
Walking, talking weapon forge. So, returning. Uh, we were sloppy. While the Exo practiced using her ability, we were ambushed by... I don't even know what they were. They were definitely not regular humans. They had abilities that the rest of us don't. We took one down, we thought, but then this little red drone lit up, and he was on his feet again. We kept firing. They didn't expect to run into an armory on foot, so they ran. But not before killing some of us, and wounding Yuki. She promised I'm still stuck with her, though. I'd be lost without her. These are
our
risen.
first encounter of Risen.
These are
Literally,
risen.
this is Risen. Like
Uh,
these are the first. So Collapse has officially. I don't want to know happened. Like to define the collapse as like a time period or anything is very hard because
mhm.
we know it has a kind of a start. We know it has a definitive middle, and we know it kind of has an end.
Well,
But
I
those two parts of it, the beginning and the end, are very, very, very confusing times.
I think we have a little more reference for the end because all of the story we have heard, and granted we have, well, I guess we do. We have the interaction Mara saw from the Exodus Green. The collapse ended, quote unquote, when the Traveler pulsed light did whatever it did to sacrifice itself to push the darkness out. Um,
The
and
same the same style
presumably
pulse we saw at the end of the Red War
at the end
campaign.
of the Red War campaign. And presumably it is that same moment, that same pulse, that is also when the ghost came into being.
Yeah,
Because when the traveler created the ghost with its final breath, like that's
yeah,
what the speaker says in D1. So
and
presumably
that's
when it
it.
pushes
It
the darkness out, the ghosts are now freely roaming.
and as much as we see that as like an end to the collapse, like the fact that when it brings back Guardians as Risen, obviously they're not Guardians at that point in time. These Risen are barbaric.
Oh
These
yeah.
guys are freaking horrible. Like,
Well, to play devil's advocate just a little bit, you're not wrong by any means, but to try and put ourselves in the impossible shoes of this character for a moment, you wake up, have no memory whatsoever of anything, not who you were, not what the world was before, of anything. You've got this, floating little light that is, we don't know what they're telling people at this point. We don't know what conversations these ghosts are having with these people, if any. Um,
because we don't have any type of entries of Risen ghosts talking.
no, no, no. Well, I guess the Drifter's ghost for a little bit.
Okay,
Um, I don't remember exactly what those conversations were, just that the Drifter didn't believe him as far as he could throw him. Uh,
right.
but so these people are waking up, much like our Guardian did, of course, but they're waking up immediately post collapse. They're waking up into a world that is as on fire apocalypse as it can be.
Yeah.
And I think I would assume that a lot of these risen are probably just kind of terrified of everything. Uh,
I mean that's so it's still interesting to me to think of Risen and Guardians and anything that the ghost has resurrected. They have no memory, right? But it's just that they have no memory of who they are in their past life.
or the past
They
of the world as a whole.
right. So do they know fear? Is fear in the memory? Is like what is fear?
Presumably, I would have to assume that all of those instinctual emotions are still there. Because I don't think of fear as a learned response. I think of fear as a, like, every single thing, born and living to a certain degree has the capability of fear. That's what keeps a lot of prey animals alive.
That's
Uh,
true. That is a
so
very instinctual thing.
I think of that as
So
more of a primal instilled thing.
so then is are like that has a bunch of interesting thoughts in of itself. That fear is very much a primal thing, and that these risens, that's like they're brought to life. This little red blinking light is staring at them, and they're staring at it, going, "What in the hell is happening? What is even going on? I don't even know who I am, where I am, what I am. All I know is I have powers."
And the Risen at this point also, and maybe even the ghosts, we don't know, uh, have no foundation for knowing what their limits are. Like
Yeah,
you gotta a Risen doesn't know that they come back to life until they
yeah,
die again. Like they don't know that
and
resurrection
and
is a
then
thing.
and even then, did they tell the other risen that like when they come across another risen, do they tell him, "Hey, I know you can come back to life," like,
And does
or
the
"Hey,
other
did you
Risen
know you can
believe
come back to
them?
life? I've died
Like
like 6 times." Like, yeah, shoot me in the face. Watch what happens. Watch, boom, look at that, came right back.
yeah,
Like, what the hell?
what's up with that?
Yeah,
Uh, but and they don't know like at this point in time they don't know can that just keep happening?
right.
Do I have a certain number of charges and then I'm truly gone? Like there's probably a lot of questions and there wasn't a network where ghosts talk to each other and there wasn't a place of for people to congregate
There wasn't
and
a
for
place of
Risen to
learning.
figure
There
stuff
wasn't
out.
a place of anything.
Uh,
It was just
so not
the
not
dying
to
world.
not to defend the actions of these Risen because they are barbaric in a lot of ways,
Barbaric, like
but
horribly barbaric.
they I will say that it's not beyond the realm of reason that they that someone in that situation would do these things.
Sure.
Um, but regardless, these Risen attacked them, killed uh, the members of the Black Armory, other than Henrietta and the Exo and Yuki, who has been injured. And then,
And this specific entry, like that specific entry, also said, they were definitely not regular humans. They had abilities
they had
that the rest of us
abilities, yeah,
don't. We took one down, we thought, but then his little red drone lit up and he was on his feet again. So like this is like they are witnessing Risen for the first time.
absolutely. Next entry then. Entry 108. One of the men who had attacked us returned, this time with an offer. He wanted the Exo. He had seen what she was capable of back at the truck, how she had turned our weapons into something even more deadly with nothing but her hands. The Exo stood, willing to sacrifice herself for us. I was horrified, but before I could say anything, Yuki lied and said she had the obsidian accelerator, that it was in her backpack. The obsidian accelerator being the thing that allows for this mobile forging process to happen.
The thing that
Uh,
at the end of the Black Armory quest, like the final end of it, is us bringing it to someone.
mhm. The man approached her cautiously as she quickly looked at me. That one last look, the same one that had calmed me down so many times. She reached for the backpack as the man drew near.
So
The
pause there for a second,
Yep,
because this is I I have, I don't want to say I have the other half of the entry here, but we obviously all of us have the other half of the entry here. But I do want to read part of the other half of the entry here
go for it.
because it's contained within Izanagi's burden, and it says, "I have it," I say, feeling Henrietta's gaze, and this is from the perspective of Yuki. "I have it," I say, feeling Henrietta's gaze piercing through me. The exo holds her back. Inside of that head of hers, I know she's screaming for me not to do it, but I have to. It's the it 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 is the kind of thing one does for love, the burden one takes on. I refuse to look back at her. I can't let those eyes stop me. "What you want? The exo doesn't have it anymore." "I do," I tell the man with the drone. Tears are streaming down Henrietta's face now. She's shaking her head. I still can't look. I know the feelings that would flow through me if I did. "Yuki, no, please don't," Henrietta cries, only to be interrupted by the man. "Shh, darling. You'd best be quiet. You'd best quiet down. Let me and your friend here finish our little transaction. I've rarely seen her in tears. She's not normally the one to make them. Usually I'm the one who needs comforting, needs my eyes dried, and she's always the one to do it. Fearless Henrietta. Fearless Henrietta. Well, Hen, today is my turn. Today I save you. The man scowls, his voice grows sharper. Hand it over then. I won't ask twice. I nod and I try to stay calm. I try to use it to lure him in, a false sense of security. I'm just going to reach into my bag now, I tell him. He shakes his head. Not so fast, friend. He takes a few steps, stopping an inch away from me, the barrel of his cannon in my face. Let's keep any potential wrong moves to a minimum here. Please? Then he nods for me to go ahead. I'm absolutely relieved. He took the bait. And now he'll pay the price. I can't just I can't go just yet though. I need just one more glance. One last look at those eyes of hers. I can't help it. It's too late now anyway. My hand is in the bag, and I've already pulled the pin. No turning back. My eyes dart to the side, to hers. They lock, one last time. I'm at peace. I let her know with a smile. I hope she finds hers. I swear she's in my mind, hearing me say, good, and it cuts off. Because what Yuki has done is she's lured the man in, and she's pulled the pin on her grenade. And that's when the Exo grabs Henrietta, covers her as the grenade explodes, shielding me from the flaming shrapnel. Then she helped me up as we ran. I looked back once. The man's red drone was shining its terrible light about the carnage, looking for its master. He'll get up again. He knows what she can do. He will be looking for us. Yuki, I'm so sorry.
So you
I fucking cried the first time I read this. So when as I'm reading this and I'm reading through the entries and then I remembered something as I was reading this entry and I got to the end of this one and I was like, wait a second. And I went back and read Izanagi's and now that one hits so hard now. And it's just, that is the burden. That is so the very first lore entry, or the white text underneath Izanagi's is shame, guilt, fear. We all bear them. Gather your regrets, purge them as best you can. Let your enemies feel the weight of your burdens, and to have that all as a burden, like for Yuki to have that burden of, I'm not going to let this man take you. I'm not going to let this man have our legacy. The Exo that's standing next to you, the Obsidian Accelerator. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to do everything I can to my dying breath to stop this from happening. And there's just, God, there's so much emotion in those two entries there that it's just shit, there's no words to express it. It's such a powerful thing that happens there.
and as a an accent to all of that. Um, for those that are not aware, Izanagi in Izanagi's Burden has a certain relevance as well. So Izanagi in Japanese mythology is a creator deity whose sister wife Izanami uh, are the last of the generations of primordial deities that manifested after the formation of heaven and earth. So if we draw some parallels there, um, I don't know that they're implying that there is a marital relationship between the two, but definitely a deep connection, sisterly if nothing else.
I still think of it as a sisterly. I still think
Yeah,
of it like the whatever bond that the three of them forged, pun intended there, is I mean they forged that bond together. Henrietta, Yuki, and Helga. The three of them are so intertwined with each other. As much as they drive
yes,
each other nuts, as much as they piss each other off, as much as they love each other, like they are family.
they're
They
a
see
family.
each
Yep.
other as family. and it's that driving force that led them to start the forges, to do this thing, to say, yeah, we're gonna start something here, and we're gonna continue on with it. And for then when reality hits and the collapse starts happening around them, and the doors are getting kicked in, and they're dying off left and right, they're like, we have to keep this going. We have to go. We have to keep this moving. This we have to keep all of this going, or what was the point? Like this, it's. God damn, I'm gonna cry again.
And say, and you know, it really gives some more. I don't want to say credence. It makes you think more about the name of Izanagi's burden. Um, you know, again, Izanagi referring to one of the last deities that manifested after the formation of heaven and earth. This is one of the last founding members of the Black Armory who created this Niobe Exo, who created this, and before that created the Black Armory, this revolutionary technology, um, and the burden that comes with being the creator of all of this, uh, as well as being one of the last creators of all of this.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and then the last two entries of that particular one is entry 109 and 110. 3 days later, still numb. It's unbearable. It's just me and her now. They spent the night under the wing of a crashed jet. I realize as I write this that I haven't seen a plane in the sky, not once since we set out. This is not the world I knew. Every time I look at her, I'm thinking about it. This is not the world I knew.
yeah, so
So
just,
this is officially like this. This is like the definitive time where Henrietta's like, it's just Henrietta and the EXO.
yep.
The two of them are they. This is a new world now. Like this is everything has changed from the beginning of the from the beginning of the founding of the Black Armory, from the just the idea of, I mean, all the way back in entry 10 of why do we trust this big old ball in the sky, to we have to do everything we can to help humanity continue on, like whatever it is. Like it, God, this,
Yeah.
I knew I'm gonna cry again. I swear I am. This is this this story, like this right here, like when it came to that point of like Yuki's gone and now it's just the two of them, the world, humanity is collapsing around them, and this is where I say, like the collapse doesn't truly have an end yet. Like they're still coming across Risen
Yeah.
that are fighting each other. Like it's humanity as we know it is still collapsing into whatever it's turning into.
Well, into the Dark Age, essentially,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
is what rises out of the what immediately rises out of the collapse, and then eventually
Yep.
the City Age. Um, so, in the interest of time,
I was starting
I'm
to say, are we at our
uh,
two? I told you we
we're
couldn't do this in one
we're over
episode, man.
we're over our two. Uh, I don't know if we want to use this as a break point. We're kind of close to the end of this first big section.
I say
Um,
we can use this as an endpoint, because
okay.
just looking at the entries,
I don't necessarily want to
there's
skip over any of the entries that
I really
follow,
don't either.
so
Like a lot of these next few entries are very much. Uh, I think they're important. I think
yeah.
they're very much lend credence to the story of the EXO and the Black Armory itself. So yeah, I definitely say we're going to call it there. In my head, episode 10 is we have some good news and some bad news for all of you PlayStation followers. For us, uh, this being episode 10, and as far as this has grown, it has now grown out of the control of PlayStation. And so next week we are going to start streaming on uh, Discord. Um, for those of you that are watching this through our producer Eclipse, I know he's in here somewhere, through his YouTube. We're gonna try to we're this we're gonna start this transition thing, and so this is gonna be between me, Myth, and Eclipse here. This is gonna be a journey in of itself to hopefully have this up and running by next Monday. Uh, if we can't figure something out by next Monday, obviously we'll be right back here on PlayStation Network, continuing the story of Pt1 and the legacy of the Black Armory. Um,
Well, on that note, by nature of this being a two-parter and leaving off the story where we did, do we maybe not want to make a platform switch in the middle of a
I,
story like
I,
this? Should we maybe
I'm
make it
thinking not.
next episode?
I'm thinking next episode, no matter what,
Unless we
is
can
good.
figure something out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time we try to come up with like this little topic, it literally overflows into like this huge, enormous thing that brings up all these little things to it. So, yeah, I agree with Myth here. I think we are going to be on PlayStation next week to at least finish out
Finish it out,
this
yeah.
story. So yeah, so with that, I like ending with a bunch of thank yous. Um, my first thank you tonight is to Clovis Bray for being a megalomaniac and wanting to see the world burn. My second thank you is to the three wonderful women of the Black Armory for standing up and saying, no, we will not go silent into the dark night. We will fight. We will stand. We will be the forgers of weapons to help humanity live on. And then, of course, um, uh, thank you to God, man, I'm gonna cry again. I don't know. I don't know if I'm just emotional tonight or what it is. I feel the love in this room type thing. I don't know. Uh, thank you, Eclipse, for helping us along with this journey. Um, thank you, Myth, for also helping. Like it, obviously, without you, these stories are just one guy rambling at nothing or crying into his pillow at night going, I'm so sad, why did they have to die? No, Helga, no, Yuki, why?
Depending
Now,
on the
now,
episode you listen to, it is still just one guy rambling.
yeah, we have sound difficulties every once in a while. Myth, do you have anything for our viewers or for anyone?
No, I'd say you do a good job of covering it each week. So I am just glad that we get to keep doing this. It's definitely something I look forward to. So I thank you and everyone that listens here or elsewise to give us a reason to keep doing it. And I'm excited to finish this story out come next Monday.
Alrighty. Well, from all
Sounds
of us
good.
lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, thank you. And we'll see you next week.